Here comes a shoal off the top. Now, this is a card we haven't seen in forever, but now seeing a bunch of play because of this new mono blue deck. Disrupting Shoal. Talk me through what it is and why it's so good in this matchup.
Yeah, so Disrupting Shoal is just another free counter spell. It's something that's been in Modern, since like the beginning of the format, but it never really lined up well, and you need to be able to pitch spells, right? But when your lands are spells, it comes up pretty big here. And for a deck like this, that's the way that it kind of gets an advantage in these sort of matchups that are like maybe faster than it is having a bunch of free counter spells.
Archaeologist is going to come down here. It's going to find the Lotus Bloom. That's instantly going on suspend. And more importantly, it's 0-free. So it can block this Ocelot's Pride quite nicely, keeping our life total high. Because we don't care how wide you go. As long as there's not a bombardment on the battlefield, we're not too scared of it.
Yep. And we saw the Lotus Bloom come down there. That's going to help us with playing the Belcher and activating on the same turn. That is sometimes one of the awkward parts about the Belcher deck, right? Is you play it and you kind of have to wait a turn, right? And sometimes they can like have something that can remove that, especially in the post-board games. But Lotus Bloom is going to help with both the Tameshi half of our deck and the Belcher half.
Would you say that that's the most important artifact in this deck? Or is it's not as good as the namesake card Belcher?
I think your deck doesn't work without Belcher, right? But Lotus Bloom gives you a lot more speed, right? So that's a weird philosophical question, and I'll let the philosophizers cover that on social media.
That was a lot of big words in one sentence there. But while that was happening, we have Disruption Shoal, pitching Disruption Shoal to stop that Goblin Bombardment coming down. That could be huge and potentially give us the edge in this matchup number one. Let's have a little look. We're right down our life totals there. More importantly, just our life total rising. What's the, I guess, on any deck, if their life total can get higher than 60, they can take a shot from Belcher?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be less than 60, right? Because like your deck is small. So like theoretically, I think it's probably like what 54 is the soonest, and then in reality, it's 53 in a couple turns. So I don't know if you get to like 55 or whatever, you're pretty good. So that is something that Roy here can do. But I will say, if that happens, we probably have enough things that Reed's just dead anyway. So, it does come up. And more notably, the One Ring comes up, right? And that's also part of why Reed needs these counter spells, is so that, hey, they can't just chain One Rings and get that extra turn of combat.
Well, we've got multiple Lotus Blooms on suspense. So I feel like mana is not an issue. Like, we have got the turn 5, even turn 6 win if needs be. We just need to either have a way of have Belcher in hand or have a way of getting it. Now, what are some of the ways that we can just go find it in our deck?
I mean, honestly, we just kind of draw into it a lot, right? Like you have Thunder Trap Trainer, as we do see this Raptor find a Ocelot Pride. There are some builds, I think, in the past that have tried some things, but I don't think there's any tutors here in Reed's deck. I might potentially missed them during our segment there. But
Whirl of Intervention.
Whirl of Invention. Excuse me, I missed that one. I thought he didn't have that one when he had Tameshi. My little squirrel in my ear told me that one. So there is one. All right, so Whirl is like a big thing to find, and that's something that Lotus Bloom can help with as well, as just paying the mana to go find it.
Right, here, well, as I said, we found another Ocelot's Pride. We did gain life before from the combat damage from the first Ocelot's Pride, so double cats being made, but no City's Blessing just yet, so only the 2 are going to be made. So we are going wide, we're applying the pressure, but while our Reed's life total is still at 16, that's still pretty high and good enough to survive for at least another turn, as we're going to play our tap land. I think we've only got one card in hand. Didn't get a good look at what it was, though.
I didn't either. He's playing a little close to the chest there. And Brennan here, if that Goblin Bombardment had stayed around, we would be really close to lethal like we had talked about before. Obviously, it did get countered, but...
All right, we've got a Phlage, we've got a Guide of Souls, and I think... Oh, and a Fraven Charm.
Yeah, I think Brennan's maybe seeing if he can get really close to lethal here, because you can play the Guide, play the Phlage, go upstairs, assuming both resolve. And get that extra energy to then jump one of your creatures to push extra damage.
So here comes the Guide, does resolve. Then we go and crack our fetch. Drop our life total down a little bit, but we've always spoke about doesn't really matter too much in this matchup. So we are going to shock in the Sacred Foundry. It's going to give us access to the free mana that we need to cast this Phlage. Here it comes. Looks like it's going to resolve. It's going to take out the Archaeologist here, doing 3 damage to it, gaining us 3 life. That means we are free to turn everything sideways. Make sure we remember our energy. Make sure we remember our life gain. And here comes an attack for 7, potentially 9. Yep, looks like we're going to cash in that energy. We're going to give one of these cat tokens flying. Any reason to give a cat token flying here over any other creature, or is it just, dealer's choice?
I think it's sort of dealer's choice when it comes to this here. Like, I don't think that super matters. That like the one thing you could do is like give it to your life linking cat, right? Like you said, theoretically, maybe there's some weird world you gain enough life, but I think it probably just makes more sense to put it on the token.
Doesn't matter.
And Belcher, you're dead.
Belcher's the last card in hand. I'm gonna have those bloom come spent. I'm gonna have 7 mana, 4 mana to cast the Belcher, 3 mana to turn it sideways. You still get to look at their deck though. I'd still be like, let's just see if there's any spice in there. But that is going to be a big one shot there from Reed. Roy did everything they kind of needed to do, put things on the battlefield, put threats out, went wide, but was just not quick enough. And this is why we're seeing this Mono Blue Belcher deck ticking up in popularity, being able to take down game number 1 against Boros. So let's start off by looking at the Boros deck list and what they've got in their sideboard to potentially shore up game number 2 and take us to the 3rd game. So that's the main deck. This is the sideboard. What do you like here, Mason?
Yeah, so I mean, looking at our sideboard, Stony Silence is obviously a card that screams, hey, this stops the Belcher deck. But also, you might notice the White Orchid Phantom there. That's meant for this deck. It's good against the Tron stuff, and that can be helpful to standard stuff. But in this matchup, Will, we play it, and we don't play any lands in the Belcher deck, right? We play all these MDFCs. So it's just a 2-mana Stone Rain. So we have 6 cards that are super great for this matchup. Now, you could even bring in a Drain Magistrate. That would stop the Lotus Bloom, right? You could bring in the Exercise so they don't have the mana to instantly kill. With the Belcher, you can kill that. But I know one thing's for sure. We're going to be bringing in these 6. And you can even bring in Orange Champ if you really want to be able to stop them from casting something that can stop a Lotus Bloom, not to mention, buy you a turn. So we have a lot of cards that we could bring in here. Brennan is really prepared. It's really a matter of how many are we going to be bringing in, right? I imagine definitely 6, potentially more. Depends on how we want to play it.
This is, and I want to talk about this, and I feel like a lot of players will do this, especially early on when they move into Magic or even Modern, is over sideboarding, diluting their main game plan. Yes, we've got 6 great cards here. Potentially, we could even go up to 10 if we wanted to. But if we take out too many cards from our main deck, we'll dilute it, and you'll think, well, I had all my sideboard cards, but I wasn't able to win the game. We still need to be able to close this game down. I think realistically, there's a lot of cards that we can actually cut from this main deck. What's your thoughts on One Ring? Versus,
yeah, I was gonna say, I think we can cut the One Ring. I think we can cut the Threadman Charm. I think we can cut the Galvanic Discharge. Obviously, we know there's Tameshi, right? And there are some chump blockers, but we have Bolt that can remove some of those chump blockers. So, there is a lot of things you can cut. And it really just becomes like, okay, what's backing up our 6 Haymakers? We have 6 Haymakers for this matchup. We're playing those cards for this here. How else are we going to sideboard? That's the real question. I want to see what's going on the Belcher side.
I was about to say, let's move across and have a look in their sideboard. Up a game already, so just need to get one more W to take this down and be 2-0 in today's tournament. This is the sideboard. What'd you like?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a couple things that jump out to me right away. The first is Portable Hole. That is a card that, if you can cast it, and you have some white lands in your deck here, but, if you can cast that one and get rid of something like Stony Silence, that is super important. Unable to Scream is a really powerful card we've seen from Duskhorn. If you played that limited format, you've learned just the difference between a 1/1 and an 0/2, right? We've seen Witness Protection for the last 2 years be a fringe sideboard card, but turning that creature into an 0/2 really matters. I don't know if we're bringing it in this matchup. I'm less familiar with how this deck sideboards exactly, but I could see something like that coming up. But Spell Snare, lots of powerful 2-drops. That one is definitely coming into our deck. We already have all the great ones that Energy plays, plus every sideboard card we talked about, Will, that costs 2 mana. So I imagine we're going to see those. Besides that, I don't think the rest of these cards are going to likely come in. And you could make an argument for some, but I'm not seeing it off the top of my head. But I'm no master of the Belcher deck.
Well, let's have a look as real time as we get down to the matchup. Game number 2 here in round number 2. Belcher 1 game up. Like, I play this. This is like my F&M deck, this Mono Blue Belcher deck. I just like playing weird combo decks at the minute. I'm in that phase of my Magic career. I feel like I like Harbinger of the Season to play. Like, the amount of times as a Boros player, I've been caught out by just having the, like my basic planes and not having a way to get it off the battlefield, so that it really slows down my game plan. I don't know if it's right or not, but I don't think I would have it, especially when I'm on the draw. But on the play, I might see that one come. But it does look like we've got the Unable to Scream, because I can see one in the hand here. Is it a keep, though?
Yeah, we look to have a Phlage Archaeologist and Unable to Scream, a Whir, and a Belcher, which means we have the turn 4 lined up if there's nothing that interacts with us. Now, Obviously, your opponent's going to probably keep the interacts, especially if they're skipping turn 1 as Boros energy. But, you know, Reed has to play the game. His deck is built to play.
I think there's double Stony Silence in hand.
That's pretty good.
I think it's double Stony Silence, or it could be double Exorcism, but I think it's Stony Silence. But we're going to go Surveilling first. Show up that top card. Hopefully we could hit like a Phlage, but then there's even a question, would you leave Phlage in this matchup? Is it going to be too slow? It's 3 mana for a Lightning Helix, not exactly where you want to be.
Yeah, I definitely think that's another one I can easily imagine coming out. Also, notably here for Reed, we had our blue-white duel, which is good because it's one of our lands you have to enter tap for the curving reasons. But if there's a white Orchid Phantom, we're going to lose access to one of our 4 easy ways to cast Portable Hole and be set back. So this could be a huge turn here for Brennan. We know that he has Stony Silence, but he's tanking on this land. Thinks he kind of needs it maybe to double spell, but if he bends it and hits a white Orchid Phantom, he knows that's going to be a juicy one.
Let's decide to bin it. So draw is going to be another fetch. Fetch it shut reasonably quickly. Now we're going to go get ourselves a Plains. We are. And I think we said cast Stony Silence. Imagine that those were the words out of Brendan's name. No, it was Ajani. Okay, we're going to play pressure. On the other side of it, do we need to? What's this open us up to if we don't cast it on turn 2?
Yeah, so there's some good and bad, right? A lot of traditional Magic theory is get your pressure first, then do the disruption, because you want to get that clock going, right? There's a 2-turn difference in playing Stony Silence, then playing the Ajani, then attacking with the Ajani, right? Now, the difference is some of these counter spells, we need a creature in play, right? For Flare Denial and stuff like that. So Brennan's opening up for, like, if there's a turn 2 creature, which your Reed's deck has 8 of, that could be a big problem. But, this allows Brennan to sort of curve out and apply pressure, and he needs the pressure and doesn't really need the Stony Silence until turn 4, right? That's when he needs to be playing it.
So we did find that Portable Hole, as you were speaking about. So that came out of the sideboard and is now in the grip. We do have a Flare Denial in hand, and now we've got the blue creature in the battlefield. That gives us an extra counter spell if we need to. And I think I saw double Belcher as well. So we've really got a lot of the tools that we want to win the game. Just can we get them down before losing it? If Roy has anything to say about it, it is going to be now, as here comes an Amp Raptor. Potentially, it's on the stack.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if Reed wants to fight over this, because obviously it's a redraw at, a sideboard card. Like,
Reed knows there's something in Brennan's sideboard. Everyone plays a card, whether it's Stony, whether it's Phantom, whether it's both. But it isn't guaranteed, and he can maybe, not fight over this one and fight over a different one. And it looks like he's, going to let that sack prison happen. No harm, no foul there.
Free energy. This means that we can turn things sideways. This also gives us the red permanent, remember. If that Ajani is to be flipped, it can now start doing damage to the face. That's one of the best ways these Boros decks have to race anybody, is by having a flipped Ajani with a big battlefield.
Yep. Now, from Reed's perspective, he's probably feeling pretty good here, right? He knows he has War of Invention if he wants to fight that way and just go end of turn war, play my Belcher you, right, on turn 4, but also has to be aware that it's like, hey, Brennan probably kept a hand that has something, and he's maybe just waiting to disrupt me, right? He tanked for a long time on binning that land, so there's probably something going on. Maybe I need to develop here. We are seeing Reed actually fight over the Static Prison.
Okay, so Portable Hole is going to take Static Prison out. Another trigger is going to happen. Look at the top 3. We put any one of these into our hand.
I mean, Spell Snare has to be tempting, assuming you have a land drop for turn, right? Looks like we're guaranteeing the land for the Belcher on turn number 4. I guess of note, Portable Hole is an artifact, so your War Line is still available to you currently.
Yes, I actually was speaking about this the other day, how I feel like essentially this deck can play like some numbers of like lanterns, etc. in the main, just to be able to have an extra way of getting weathers out. But that's a conversation for a different time. More setup. Here comes the land. Now this is going to be the, I can never remember the black blue one. The teachings, Teachings.
Watergrove Teachings, I think, yeah. Obviously a mystical teachings callback there.
What can we do with this? This is the last turn, so we're kind of stemming the bleeding a little bit with a little bit of setups. This is going well here for Reed Alexander on the left of our screen. Remember, already up again. Just needs to take this one down to win 2-0. Brendan on the right, though, really needs something now, because we are getting to that mid to late game territory where things get real scary. That's a Goblin Bombardment on top. Do we want to keep it there?
Yeah, you mentioned how earlier Brennan has, double
Ooh.
Stony Silence in hand. Yeah, that I think the Unable to Scream also makes the permanent blue. Now, obviously, Goblin Bombardment's red, so the Ajani would still do damage, right? But it is something to keep in mind here. There is a note of like, yeah, we have that land, so our mana's spoken for next turn, but the following turns we do need to pay attention to because we're probably going to see Stony as the line this turn to just sort of set up. But there's a lot of plays available here to Brennan.
We could go Chant into Stony to hold up another stone, but the fact that we've got double Stony, I like the idea of just playing double here. I might not have played my land out straight away to kind of bluff that. Oh, I definitely can't play another one, but let's see how we go. Here comes Flare Denial, full art one as well. Love to see it. That is the first one dealt with.
Yeah, it's also an interesting spot too. I think I would have also held the land too. You don't really gain much from playing it, right? But if there's a world where it's like I'm going to cast both these anyways, maybe Reed won't counter it, So sort of an interesting sort of where do you land there? Very philosophical, That's for the scholars of Twitter to figure out, not me. I play my land after my spell,
Combat.
It is a weird kind of habit that we're in, because we used to do combat and then you'd cast your spells as well, but in this instance it's better to cast before because now there's no blocker, so now we get more damage in. Goblin Bombardment is what we're going to go with instead of playing out the other Stony.
Yeah, I kind of like this here from Brennan because from his perspective, right now that he knew that got fought over, he can't really die next turn. The Belcher can come down, but you can't die from it, right?
Yeah, but you can die from a Tameshi here, though, right?
That's true, yeah, but Brennan hasn't seen the Tameshi.
That is true, but then we've only got the 2 creatures as well. If we've got untapped land Tameshi, we can just win this turn.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
So scary.
Yeah, this deck puts a lot of pressure on you, and remember, not everyone plays Tameshi. It's pretty popular, but it's not stock, as the kids would say. Fully yet. There's a lot of diverging opinions in the Belcher hive minds here, but there's only one thing I know about the hive mind, and that's that I use the ETB playmat from Heavy Play sponsoring this tournament, and we're going to see how Rick wants to play this. Because if he does tap out and plays like the Belcher, right? Brayden just goes, all right, here's my Stony Silence. Do you have Force and Negation or whatever? If you don't, I'm probably going to win. I might even just kill you.
It doesn't look like he does either. Looks like we've got everything we need for a win, but I don't think we can win this turn. Now we're counting up next turn. How much damage is this on the battlefield? You attack me for 2. You make another token. You shoot me for 3. You sack those 3. That's 8 damage total. That is us going to game number 2. Is there a way to stem this bleeding? We can make one of the token is 0-2. Would that give us the extra 2 life that we need? The answer is yes, if you've got literally nothing else in hand. And we know that those last 2 cards are Stony Silence plus the what's it called? The Chant. Orange Chant, which
so that's going to lock the game up most likely, right? Like if you resolve a Stony and then chant them on their turn, it's just going to be lethal assuming you don't have it. I do want to bring up something that I think is pretty relevant, Will, here, which is Brennan picked up his cards. Now maybe he knows Reed, maybe they're friends, we don't know exactly, right? And maybe he knows Reed's deck list, so he's like, I don't need to see your deck. But we would have known every card in his deck if we had made him resolve the Belcher, right? Because you have to flip your deck over here. So Brennan maybe feels comfortable, maybe knows Reed, right? But also, like you mentioned, that Tameshi thing that could have killed us last turn, or this turn, excuse me, that would be something that is avoidable, or at least something we could consider for sure. So makes you think.
It's awkward. It's well, the portable hull with just a 1-of in play as well, because potentially we could have well as try and find that.
Yep.
No, we're going to have to go land, and this is an awkward sequence as well, because now it doesn't set up for us to be able to win next turn unless we draw another Tameshi, but now there's going to be more than 3 creatures in the battlefield, so Tameshi will be able to be killed with the Goblin Bombardment. I think that was our window, and I think we will be going to a game 3 momentarily, but can Roy find the line to close out this turn, or at least stop Alexander from winning next turn so we can win over 2 turns? You got to imagine all the tools are just face up right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, if Brennan plays a creature, right, and the creature resolves and he just takes up his Ajani, that's 4, and then the bombardment does 4. So that's 8.
Easy. Quick math.
If you play, this Orange Chant first, he has to counter this, and then he has to counter your Guide of Souls, and he has to have a way to kill you, and he has to also counter your, Stony Silence. He just has to have, 3 counters. It's just not doable. And that's game. All Brennan has to do is take up and then bombardment, pop, pop, pop.
attack, add the energy counters to give it +2, sack everything. That is game number 2. We are going to go to a game number 3 here, where we're going to have Belcher on the play, which is even more scary. But this time knows a few of the hate cards that needs to be to battle against. So let's have a look at the Belcher list one more time. Now we've got better understanding that we know that there's a Stony Silence. We know there's the chant in hand. Is there anything you change going into game number 3 here?
I don't think so. I could see someone maybe make an argument for Commandeer to take something like the chant, you know what I mean? And then you lock them out. I personally don't land in that camp. But you know, I can see where someone's coming from. Maybe if I saw if my opponent had like running chant in me, right? Like chant, then I would be like, all right, let's bring in the Commandeer. They clearly have a bunch of this. I don't know exactly how many they have, and I kind of want to fight over some other stuff. And that doesn't fight over a ton else in a super profitable way. There are some weird interactions, but I think I'm just resubmitting the same ones. I'm on the play draw matters a ton, and we saw it in that matchup as well. Just gave you know, more time for the energy player to sort of not have to go for it and set up the fighting turn that he wanted to, and Reed, you know, on the draw had a little bit one too many tap lands, some awkwardness. So
and all we're really doing in this matchup is we're fighting for turns, right? Like each game is like, I'm 1 turn away from winning. I'm 1 turn away from, I need to stall them for 1 more turn. And that's kind of all these sideboard cards are doing from both players now is, you know, unable to scream, let's stop that attacking me. Okay, now that's bought me an extra turn of life that I need. Oh, on the other side, okay, well, here's Stony Silence. That's now a turn. You have to answer it. So it's a really cool little chess game that we're going to be playing here. Let's have one more look over on the Boros side, see if there's any spice floating around there, if anything changes, play, draw, dependent. That's the main deck. That's the sideboard. What are we thinking, Mason? Keep it as it is, or, you know, are we switching up?
No, I mean, we like talked about it before, right? Like, we didn't like the rings. Some of these removal spells we didn't feel were that great. We obviously want some for Tameshi. Like, the bolts are good because they also push damage, right? Like, bolts, something that in that last game could have been super relevant if they were a little bit higher. So there, and then like you mentioned, Phlage, sort of an expensive bolt. So very easy to imagine cutting that card when you were on the play where it's better. On the draw, I imagine you just go like all the way down to 1 or 0, and you just get in all these cards that could be relevant and just hope that they line up well. And, you know, a lot of these other cards are very cheap. So that gives you a little bit of an advantage there.
Well, let's find out. Let's get down to game number 3 here. Round number 2 of the MXP Houston 20k Modern event. This time, though, Alexander is going to be on the play with this powerful Belcher deck. It's designed to beat these Boros decks. And we're starting off with the powerful turn 1 Lotus Bloom on Suspend. This is exactly what Reed wants. Fetch on the other side. What is going to be our 1 drop of choice? Remember, no Ragavans in this list. Ideally, the most powerful one we want to see if we're playing Boros Energy against these Belcher decks. It's coming in to play taps. It's always a good sign. And suspense is... It's not suspense. Okay, this is a good one at being able to apply lots of pressure to the battlefield. Really good if we've got something like a Goblin Bombardment in the future. Do we have a 2-drop over here on Alexander Reed's side? That's going to be able to dig through our deck a little bit more. It's also going to be able to hold up some flare denials. And we do. And this one's got a little bit of power as well. So that means that cat can't really attack into it too well. This one's also look at top 4, I believe. Yeah, top 4. Which is a little bit better. Sees a Whirler, sees another one, sees a couple of land.
Yeah, and you know, this is a very interesting spot. You know, we have the Bloom, but the work could always find our Belcher proper. And, you know, maybe you need some lands there. Looks like we are going to go for the Whir, just to make sure we have the Belcher. Potentially also look up something like a Portable Hole, like we talked about there in game number 2. That's a great way to maybe fight through Brennan's sideboard cards, have a little extra insurance.
Now what's going to be the follow-up? This is where this deck really shines. The 2-drops in this deck are great. They're key to the strategy. But when you have to turn to a Surveyor land is not ideal. Do we like that top card? Is that going to help us win this game? Got to imagine we're looking for something like a Ossus Chant, essentially, that could stop the Lotus Bloom coming down. We do like it on top. Here comes a Stacked Prison. That's going to get rid of the trainer on the other side, so we can turn this cat sideways, get a point of damage in, and, of course, gain a life, which means we can make another cat end of turn. That's what we're going to see happen here. End of turn, no City's Blessings, just 1 cat token is going to enter. And then we're going to pass the turn back across. Lotus Bloom goes down to 1. Didn't get a good look at what card we drew there. We're going to stop that cat from being able to gain life or do damage at all. Turn it into a 0-2. Have access to 2 land, double Belcher and Whirler. So we do have the turn for win here. As long I don't know which lands those are, but like they do say tapped and untapped on them, I believe. And they both say tapped, which means we haven't got the turn for win unless that top card is an untapped spell land.
Yeah, I like where Reed's coming from with these double face cards, because that was the thing I was thinking about. It's like, how do you know which one's tapped on tap? You have to learn all the names, but using his checklist cards to kind of mark, like, hey, these are the ones that do that, these are the ones that don't. And honestly, that is what matters the most on a lot of those cards. There's some of them like Sinking a Stupor, where like knowing it's that card matters, but Seagate Wreckage, you're never gonna cast that card unless you're like in the super late game, and then you're reading that anyway. So
I'm yet to cast that card while playing this deck.
Yeah.
Alright, we come. Oh, here we go. Oh, that's the white orchard. Yeah, so we can destroy a land here. We can Stone Rain. We do see some Belcher decks do board in basic lands. Do play a couple, a one of in the sideboard for cards like this, but there are none here for Alexander. So it's just going to be a shuffle and setting us back one more turn, which is the ideal turn, of course, because we did speak. This is a turn 4 combo deck.
Yeah, you see players like Nassif plays a lot of this Belcher deck, at least historically has, and he's talked about maybe playing a blue-red Surveil land, because if you hit a mountain with Belcher, it does double the damage, right? If you hit a normal land, any other land type, it does equal number of cards milled, but with a mountain, it's double, so it doesn't take that many cards. If you milled 9 cards here, you would win, and then in a moment like this, you get a Surveil land to kind of set up your draw. So I think it's a really interesting piece of sideboard technology. If White Orchid Phantom continues to be popular, that's a really big innovation. I mean, that could have been game winning here,
Yeah, true. Now we're in the dilemma though. Do we just play out a Belcher here? Which if there's any static prisons in the hand, that's a good answer for it. But we do have double Belcher. Do we hold up you being able to use a Whirler? Do we have the untapped land? We didn't get a good look at what we drew this turn. We know we've got the 3rd land drop, but it's definitely going to be tapped at minimum.
I'm going to tell you, Will, all I'm thinking about right now is, man, maybe that white blue humans deck should have been playing White Orchid Phantom. Imagine Orchid Phantom into Mockingbird. Whew, that would have been a beating. But, while we're focused on the game at hand, I think there's like a lot of benefits maybe to just holding up the Whir and getting extra mana, and also having answers to potentially, like, if you have an untapped land, then you can do that to have Portable Hole available. We are going to go with the tap land here, and it looks like just wait. Once again, I have not played a ton of the Belcher deck. I've played against it a fair amount, but I kind of like this approach. There's no reason to sort of just deploy it and potentially get got by something like, maybe not Exercise is the card that's being thought of, but Static Prison. As we do have to keep paying for that Static Prison, we're running low on energy here. And if we get back to Thunderback Trainer, it's going to be able to block, draw some cards.
No enablers just yet to gain us any more energy, but we do have 4 damage on the battlefield though. There's the energy being paid for the Static Prison. I'd go out on a limb and say you don't want to be giving them the trainer back.
Yeah, that advice was free.
That advice is free. Ooh, I think we've got another White Orchid in hand. So we can Stone Rain again, potentially this turn.
Yeah, and that Stone Rain will be massive, and it's going to really reward Reed for holding up this Whir, right? Because you can improvise with the Whir, although I guess you need to have a blue, so you can't quite do it yet, can you?
Well, Stone Rain is in hand as well. Not Stone Silence.
Yeah.
Stone Rain.
Like a Stone Rain. It's honestly, it's sort of like, an Armageddon at this point with that Lotus Bloom in play. You'd lose half your mana.
I think that's going to be the line. Here comes Stony Silence. That is not what Alexander wants to see here, where we've just got land, double Belcher, plus Whirler in hand. Can we float the mana here and go get, once this resolves, go get Portable Hole from the Whirler?
I think so, yeah. And that will give you the out there now. Obviously, you won't be able to Belcher and kill right away, but you're able to keep playing, and that's what matters a lot here. And Brennan doesn't have the pressure to really kill you right away.
So we can have a little look, just make sure that that's how that works. It is. So we're doing it for 4. 3 to cast a spell. X is 1.
You saw Brennan kind of nod the head like, all right, yeah, no, that's true.
So now that's going to go under there, but we don't have that explosive turn, and we're only at 11, and currently now next turn they'll be attacking for another 6. Is this Ulysses Blessing? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, we don't have it. We would have had it if that Stony Silence was to stick around, but it didn't. Cut the old deck here. think we can lightning bolt ourselves and, you know, kind of pray. We've got no protection. That is one of the big things to this deck. Of course, we drew a Flare of Denial.
Yeah, and remember, the Static Prison's going to return to our side of the battlefield here in a second, right? I'm sorry, the Thunder Trap Trainer, because of the Static Prison here. So now Brennan could have like a Galvanic Discharge and choose to pay 0, right? But that would be I think the only way here at instant speed to do it. And that Thunder Trap Trainer is going to have a massive impact.
Big draw step here. Untap, draw for turn. Static Prison, it's coming back. ETB, look at the top 4. This is not what you want to see if you're over on Roy's side. Sees another Flare of Denial. Sees a Assures as well. So that could be double counter spell we can have up here.
Yeah, and I think the Shoal makes a lot of sense to me, at least, just because that's like a free counter spell, and like it isn't. We know we have the Flare. Brennan doesn't know, so Brennan might be thinking maybe I can weave around that Shoal, and in reality, is just kind of pinched in.
1 mana. No. Have another little think. Oh, we drew the Static Prison for the turn. That was our draw step. But we've got the Flare that can deal with it.
Yeah, and remember, Brennan doesn't know, because Brennan's thinking, okay, you know, is there anything I can do to play around this here? Brennan might be thinking, all right, maybe I can bait him with this White Orchid Phantom. We know that, you know, because he's trying to play around Shoal.
But we don't have the mana for it. There's no energy. We've only got 2 white.
That's right, yeah. So, I mean, we can't do that. We can play a Johnny.
We're trying to bait out the counter spell.
Yeah, and, you know, I'm not even sure how many things the Shoal can pitch in order to counter this Static Prison, but I do like the idea of trying to get something around it here. And Reed doesn't buy it, and Brennan's like, yeah, I don't know if I can do anything.
That's huge. You're playing your outs here. Like, your Johnny is a card that you do not want to see on the battlefield, but in this instance, sure, whatever. All I need to do is untap. That is all I need to do. I need to stop whatever you've got from letting me tap 3 mana next turn and point my Belcher at your face. This is going to be an attack for 5. Sure, take it. Drop down to 3. You can gain 1 point of life. That's fine.
I think I maybe would block the Ocelot Pride just because Bolt could be lethal here. And that would force the hand either way. But you do see here, Static Prison get flared. And then we're going to activate that Belcher, and Brennan's going to be like, you don't have lands, do you?
I'll get you. Here's my deck. Take 50 odd points of damage. And that is going to be Alexander Reed taking this game down, winning 2-1, advancing 2-0 here at the MXP Houston 20K. So that, you know, this is the reason to play the deck, right? You want to be playing against these energy decks. You want to be playing on them, and we saw why in that match.
Yeah, it's really, really lopsided. And one of the big things about Belcher is it just wins the game 1. Right, it's really hard to win, especially because you're going to probably keep hands that have some amount of interaction as energy, right? Energy is the most played deck in Modern right now. It's kind of making up 30 to 40% of the metagame if you're playing on Magic Online. You're going to keep hands that interact. You're going to be a little bit slower, and then you have to win both post-board games. You have a lot of sideboard cards like we saw there from Brennan, but they aren't guaranteed to win. You know, you can still get overcome. It's not like these blue decks have nothing. And you know what? We saw the deck win, and we're going to have to see if the Belcher can keep winning. But I want to see some other Magic, Will.
Well, I don't know what we've got, but I know we've got a backup feature match. So let's get straight down to it and find out together what have we got going on. It looks like we've got Damon Fisher versus Vincent. I don't even want to try and pronounce that second name. Ortega?
I believe it's Ortega, yeah.
Boros Energy versus Amulet Titan. I would put money on Elves being here, but here we go. Amulet Titan versus Boros Energy. How does this one normally pan out?
Yeah, so this is typically a favored matchup for Amulet Titan. We've seen in paper. Online, you know, Amulet Grinder still succeed with this deck every now and again, but you don't see it as much. There are some things that are just really hard to do on Magic Online you can very easily do in paper. There are some loops with, like, the analyst here, the Aftermath analyst, excuse me, that require a ton of clicks, and I think, like, kind of create some sort of, you know, APM barrier, to use, you know, other video game terminology. But here in paper, Dana can just describe it. You know, she's someone who's been playing Magic here for a long time. And I was going to mention that too. I think a lot of people think of Dana as the elf girl, right? Yep. We all kind of met her in Magic when she was like 5 or 6, and all she did was play elves. And that's great. But I think it's important to remember, Dana's kind of a spike. If you watch her play, she's very, very good at combat. And she doesn't play elves all the time. She plays whatever she thinks is the best deck, and just likes green decks. So she played, you know, Devotion for a long time in Pioneer, and was very good at sort of just playing it all the time and learning the ins and outs. And so if she has that same approach to Modern, Will, I've never seen her play this format, I imagine she could be a bit of a killer here, because if you learn Amulet really well, it is one of the best decks in Modern. We have seen it time and time again sort of be a top deck, and in this current metagame, it's typically good against these energy decks. Like we mentioned, it has a lot of game plan and a lot of speed.
Yeah, very, very explosive deck, but extremely hard to play. And I personally think that's why we don't see it doing as well, is because it's just so hard to play. So many people don't pick it up, when you can just pick up a slightly easier deck to play, we must say, in Boros Energy, which is what Dana is going to be up against. So let's have a look at this list. We've seen a couple of different iterations. This looks a little bit more stock to me. Still no Ragavans in here, but one Fraving Charm is probably the spicy one. But we're ready to get down to the match. Let's just get straight down to it.
Yeah, and we're hopping into game number 2 here. So the players will be sideboard. We're not going to look over those real quick just for the sake of coverage and time. But something to note here is typically these energy decks play either Blood Moon or Obsidian Charmar or White Orchid Phantom. Those are the land interaction. And depending on which one it is going to have a huge difference on Dana's ability. Now, we saw Dana win game 1. That's expected. That's sort of, like we mentioned, these combo decks, they sort of beat up on energy game 1. And then post-board, they have to tussle. And you see Dana have a nice start.
Yeah, got the turn 1 Amulet. That's exactly what we want. I think the rest of the hand is land, which you'd expect, and of course, one copy of the One Ring. Now, this deck, Amulet Titan, when I speak to all my Amulet Titan friends, they just say the deck's great, but it's just the best One Ring deck there is in Modern.
Yeah, I think it is the deck that uses the One Ring the best, right? Because your deck, like, what does the One Ring ask of you at its core, right? It asks you to have time and to have mana, because it gives you all the cards you need. And then, honestly, it gives you a little bit of the time, too, with the protection clause, right? And so Dana's deck is the biggest mana deck, the quickest at getting the One Ring going, because while Tron might have more mana consistently, it takes a little bit longer for them to get going. Dana can turn to the One Ring here. Another Amulet, a bounce land, bam, that's going. She is getting those burn encounters and getting those cards and killing ASAP, which the Tron deck doesn't do. The Tron deck plays like a control deck. So Dana's deck really, capitalizes on that card. And Vince here is in a bit of a tough spot, because that Amulet is threatening a lot here. We have a strong card, Amped Raptor.
But we didn't have a turn 1 play, remember, so it was just turn 1 Surveil, and then turn 2, well, we might as well just get ourselves a little bit more energy. We'll use 1 to cast it, we'll target this Raptor, go up to 4, and then pass turn. So potentially now any future Amp Raptors can hit things like our own One Rings, Phlages, even Blood Moons, if they are coming in out that sideboard. You have to imagine they are. But over on the other side, if we've got anything spicy we can do, nope, just Forest and pass. So both players on a bit of a slower start in this game too.
Yeah, I really like, by the way, what you said about the discharge. To me, that signals 2 big things. We either have a Guide of Souls or another Raptor in hand, right? Because if you left discharge in your deck, you're probably wanting it to fight over something. So the fact that Vince is going like, hey, I just want the energy, probably means there's some energy payoff, or potentially another Galvanic Discharge. Dana here with the land go looks innocuous, but Blood Moon's a big scare for her, and she has that second Boseiju in hand. Of note, she led with that first Boseiju, but has the second one here, kind of maybe tricking Vince. Oh no, you've Blood Moon me. What will I do?
Arguably, as well, just so you're on the side, just nitpicking here, but played the full art one, and then it's going to use the non-full art one to get rid of the Blood Moon. Little things really matter to me, ladies and gentlemen, and that is one of them, and I love to see it.
That's right. And, now I imagine this is happening at end of turn here. And now Dana, we talked before about how we could turn to the One Ring pretty easily. Any bounce line here plus the One Ring, and she's drawing. She's in a good spot. And, her opponent very likely kept their hand because of this curve, right? They didn't have anything on turn 1. Turn 2 Data Raptor, turn 3 a Blood Moon. A very reasonable keep here. And Dana has maybe, undone that keep if Vince doesn't have any other power cards in hand.
Comes Surveil. We don't like that. That's going to be Aether Hub going to the graveyard. Now untap here for Dana. Couldn't draw that card quick enough. We all have an idea what's come down. Just need a bounce land here, because of course with Amulet of Vigor on the battlefield, all the lands that come into play tapped will come into play untapped because of the trigger. So how do we want to sequence this? And this is where I look at you, Mason. Like, there's a reason I don't play these Amulet decks. I do not have a big enough brain to play them. It's very easy when I've got the turn 1 Amulet, and I can turn, for my Titan. That bit I got. It's this bit that is where it gets complicated for me. Talk me through what's happening.
Yeah, so Dana's playing Lotus Field, floating 2 mana, sacrificing the 2 lands, up to 5 mana. Looks like it's all green here. And then now she's playing the One Ring here with a mana floating. and has some more plays potentially available to her here. Could easily draw an amulet, you know, and then use that floating mana to deploy that. Could also graze her to play another land. Yeah, there's that second amulet. And Dana here now threatening a kill very easily on the next turn. Gets a turn of protection, and any bounce land is going to make 4 mana. Another Lotus Field is going to make 6. Yes, she would lose her lands, but could easily play a Titan, chain off all the Titans in her deck, make infinity of them, and attack. It is a very easy line once you have 2 amulets in play.
So I also think that the extra amulet was what was drawn off the ring as well. The little smile as she like her drew the card and played it. Like,
yeah,
never didn't have it. But what can we apply with this turn over on Vince's side? What are we going to start off with? It's going to be an Ajani coming down. That's going to generate a 2/1 cat warrior token. Now, is there a way for us to flip it? We don't really want to flip it in the face of protection from the ring because we'd have to target one of our own creatures or ourselves. That's something that Will has definitely fallen short of before. 1 point of damage is going to be taken because of the temptation of the ring, but that doesn't matter. We're going to tap it straight away. Add a second counter, which means 2 more cards deeper into our deck. Here comes the bounce land shenanigans. 4 mana floating. Bounce it back to our hand. Give a little dice out for us. 2 blue, 2 green floating. Tap, add another 3 green. That takes up to 5 green, 2 blue. Down, that's 6 mana. It's only 1 card we're casting for 6 mana in this instance, and of course it is a Titan. Titan ETB, that means we go find 2 land, put them onto the battlefield, tapped in brackets, because there are 2 amulets on the battlefield, so there's going to be a bunch of triggers being stacked. If we were playing Magic Online now, the screen would just be getting filled with little images of cards and how you want to sequence the stacking. And this is exactly where we would be going, I don't know what's going on. I'm just F6ing through the turn.
Now, this is an easy one here. So, of note, we talked before, the Galvanic Discharge line from Vince might imply there is another discharge in hand, but if Vince is letting it to this stage, it's probably not the case. That mirror pool, we're going to create infinite Titans here, or just get 2 of them and haste them up and kill. I didn't pay super close attention to what her kill condition was with her mana when we popped up the deck really quickly there, but she's going to be able to make another Titan right here, and then very easily search her deck. She can haste both Titans and attack for a ton.
Can I respond to this trigger?
Yeah, so when the lands enter, there is an untapped trigger from the Amulet of Vigor. So, for example, there's a moment here where Dana searches up this tutor land in the Lotus Field, and if Vince had Galvanic Discharge, could have discharged the Titan, and Dana would just be left with only 1 Lotus Field in play. They would all, you would have to sacrifice 2 things. Now, she would be able to float mana, but she wouldn't be able to make a copy of anything.
And obviously, our hand's pretty stacked as it is. But is there a way that we could have played around this? Is there, another line that potentially could still win the game through a discharge, or is it just?
Yeah, it depends a bit on what her hand is. Yeah, I mean, like for example, she would have 8 mana floating still, right, from the Lotus Fields and the Mirror Pool. So she maybe would just like float mana, play another Titan, and kind of do it again, or Pact. And then you can go get the Aftermath Analyst, and that loops through your whole deck now because you have enough mana with the 2 amulets in the Lotus Fields to go again and again and again if you find a Shifting Woodlands and you have the Mirror Pool too. So you're going to see this Echoing Deeps copy the Mirror Pool because it enters as a land in the graveyard. So now Dana is going to get to search her deck. He's going to make another copy of a Titan and get to search her deck again.
Fraven Charm check.
Yeah.
Does have 2 mana up, does have 1 in the main.
And of note, someone at home might be a little confused because there's a Lotus Field trigger on the stack, right? We're responding to that first Lotus, I'm sorry, the first one entered this turn, so technically the second one, of sacking 2 lands. This is all at instant speed right now. So when it's done, Dana's going to need to sacrifice 4 lands, but that will not be a problem almost ever. Sometimes you get got in weird situations, but for the most part, you're good here. And yeah, the fact that Dana's shuffling makes me think the opponent might even be getting ready to concede here. He might ask a question like, hey, let me ask something before I scoop, you know? Because maybe she's just also fidgeting, but she has her whole deck in her hand and is probably going to win the game this turn.
So this is game 2, remember, so we do have sideboard cards. So Fraven Charm, there's 1 in the main, 1 in the sideboard. There's a weird chance that
it's too late.
Could Orange Chant do anything here?
Orange Chant could stop an attack, and Thraben Charm, since Dana's resolved her search, it enters as a copy, I believe. So he will not be able to get rid of the 1 in the graveyard there via exiling. Now, if Dana goes for an Aftermath Analyst line, right, where she tries to bring back a bunch of lands, then that line could be stopped by Thraben's Charm. But currently, it's entered as the Mirror Pool. Once he's let Dana search, it's a state-based effect. It's not a trigger.
Okay. Again, this is something that, this is half the reason why a lot of us watch coverage. We learn these sort of things while watching coverage, because if this ever happens to you, you want to know the optimal time to fire off X spell if you have it against certain different decks. So we had to do this before. This is all happening. We can't respond to it, which unfortunately for Vince is probably the writing on the wall, because there's a lot of copies of Titan being made right now. Dana's just going through the motions, kind of explaining what's happening. This is happening. I'm targeting this. This is going to make another one. Here comes some blue mana being floated here.
Yeah, that might be a sign that Dana has something like Twitter or West.
So I have 2
We're
blue, 3
listening to the
green
players
floating.
real quick. Dana's gonna explain
Sacrifice
it.
Miracle, make a copy of this type. Copy type.
Right. Sure. Okay.
Type play there from Dana, copying the copy Titan.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter a ton, but just so this game come up. Gonna search for deck again. And you can tell from Vince asking the judge.
Because
right,
okay, so
has a card that matters,
echoing deeps,
and
I'm struggling to understand the mechanic of it. Enters as, because everything is like enter, trigger, target. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it enters as a copy of Miracle.
Okay, I gotcha.
So right now is when Vince wants to pull the
that's fine.
graveyard.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. Complicated deck.
It is. It is. I understand perfectly the old, Slayer Stronghold Titan deck.
So this is another thing. Amulet players were crazy. I got my first big finish with the Amulet. I kind of consider myself, an Amulet enjoyer. I don't play it as much in tournaments recently, but we do a lot of different weird stuff. So I've seen people with 1. I've seen people with 3. You know what I mean? Like, people kind of play differently. I think 1 is stock these days. Typically, I go by what House of Mana and Dom Harvey do. Those are the guys. That's where everyone's kind of iterating. You do see some divergences. Canister is definitely a big name as well. But a lot of players, like House of Mana, just plays this deck all the time. Pretty sure he plays 1. So that's going to be a position where Dana's probably not going to do it again. But the shifting woodlands is going to allow for a copying of something in the graveyard if Dana wants to go that route.
Okay.
I don't think she has Delirium yet. It's a little hard to tell in her graveyard. It looks like she just has lands.
Yeah, just lands in there.
Yes.
But she might just be wanting mana too. Like, we're talking about all this. Dana has 4 cards in hand. She might just have another Titan.
They always seem to have it all. Whenever I play against them, it seems like they just have it all the time, to be fair.
Yeah. And we're seeing Dana here resolve her bounce land. Remember, on the bottom of this stack is sacrifice 4 lands from the Lotus Field triggers. So all these lands might be going to the graveyard here in a second, and this might be when Dana's hoping to Aftermath Analyst.
We got all this mana floating. Is there a way to do we have to get to a combat phase to win, or is there some sort of shenanigans where they can, what's the word I'm thinking? Outburst my face? I can't remember what it's called.
No, they can't really burn you out. We are gonna need to move to combat.
Okay.
But Dana is setting up a kill where basically she's going to do this over and over again, like we talked about the Aftermath Analyst. But I think Vince has Thraben Charm, and that's why Vince was asking about everything, right? About like, hey, what's going on with the graveyard? Dana's Teleria Westing here. That's going to allow her to search her deck or something. She's going to get for the Pact. I'm a little curious to see what she's going to Pact for.
Okay.
Because here, if he has the Thraben Charm, I don't think any of these Titans have haste. I think she used her land drop for turn. This might be game. Now, she has a lot of mana. She could maybe do something else. But if she goes for the activate here, Vince could get rid of the graveyard.
Is there should we be waiting on this charm? Could we do it once the cards have been milled?
I believe the milling happens on resolution. I would need to read Aftermath Analyst again. I don't remember off the top of my head if milling is part of the cost. I think milling's part of the resolution. I'd have to double check though. But Dana is, ATBs and mills. That's right. And then you activate it with the mill. So yeah, we could have waited there. You do get into some amount of awkwardness where maybe Dana has enough mana to activate twice, right? Like currently she doesn't, but I don't think she started with a land for turn yet. So if that was the case, then maybe Dana can play through the Thraben Charm.
I think, is this not the turn that we used the bounce land to start off with?
I thought we had enough to cast the Titan to begin with, but I could be misremembering. It's been a 5-minute turn.
Yeah. This turn's going for a long time.
Yeah, one of the things I do when I play with the Amulet and Paper is I'll have like a land for turn button on the combo turns. So it's like, okay, we've been playing for a bit. I have used my land for turn. You know what I mean? Just so I don't forget, because stuff like this, it's very easy to get lost in the sauce. I think I like this from Vince just because, assuming we do have the land for turn, Dana could play around Thraben Charm by activating again, I believe. I would need to read once against Analyst. I don't know if it sacrifices for the cost, but she might be able to get through this here. Crumbling Vestige will make 1 mana off its ETB, and then it untaps. She can float a mana. That puts 4 mana available for her.
Okay.
Spelunking. That's huge. That's a redraw. And if we hit a Lotus Field, that's 6 mana. We could play another Titan, but remember, Dana has a pack trigger on the stack.
Yeah.
She will lose the game if she does not win this turn or get, 4 mana in play, 2 of it green.
One question: if the activation happens to bring the cards back from the graveyard, can I then Thraben Charm in response to that? Could I have got a little bit more juice on my squeeze out of that, or was that the right time to use my Thraben Charm?
I once again, I would need to read Analyst one more time to say with 100% certainty. From the abstract, I think it was a good time to use the charm. Because I think, that's just a chance for things to go the least strong. Looks like we put a Acidic Growth Chamber into play and we're bouncing the Crumbling Vestige. That's going to put us at 5 mana. If Dana... So she probably doesn't have an Arboreal Grazer, because if she had a Grazer, she'd probably still bounce the Vestige.
This is...
I think...
I had to pay for that pact.
Yeah, I don't think there's any instant speed way to put a land into play. This also could be a spot where Dana knows she's dead and wants to see a sideboard card from Vince, right? Let's say Vince plays a White Orchid Phantom here to blow up her dual land. Well, now Dana knows that for game number 3 at very little cost to her.
Goblin Bombardment. That's a good one. That gives us obviously a bunch more damage and can flip the Ajani. There are 3 Titans on the other side of the battlefield, so they tend to be quite big blockers.
Yeah.
And we're deciding, do we want to attack? Like, there's lots of ways to flip this Ajani, but how do we want to do it? Do we want to do it for combat damage, or do we want to just sack with the bombardment?
Yeah, I think you just...
Yeah, I was...
I think she just realized the fact, yeah.
No. I think Dana knew. I think Dana literally was fishing for sideboard cards. And when she realized her opponent doesn't realize she's dead, yeah, let's pull up the sideboard real quick here. I think Dana literally was just like, Vince, you going to show me your card? Do you realize I'm dead or not? Because I think Vince also hasn't played a lot against this deck, and Dana can tell, right? If you play a lot of Amulet, you kind of know when your opponents know. So I think she's hoping to be like, hey, what sideboard card do you have, Vince? Vince is starting to tank about combat. She's like, that doesn't matter. I'm dead. I'll pick up my card. So good play there for her time-wise.
Talk to me about the sideboard here.
Yeah, there's a couple cards here. So Fire Spout's a good one to clean up the board. You see Force of Vigor sometimes come in here as a way to answer Blood Moon as a 0 mana thing. We saw Boseiju. She always main decks 2. Sideboard 1 makes sense to me to have as a thing you can bring in here. Those are all pretty good. Colossal Sky Turtles, sometimes a good way to fight through interaction. Dismember's a card we see some players bring in to fight over things. Kind of depends on how Dana wants to sideboard and what card she's expecting from her opponent. But we saw the Blood Moon there in game number 2. We fought through it with the Boseiju. So, I think the Force of Vigor is probably going to be in our deck as at least a one-of, as a, hey, I have no green mana, but I have a way to answer your Blood Moon card that can also hit a Bombardment, which is not 0. We've seen Bombardment be pretty strong. So, fringed application there.
Also, like to me, the Glorious End, that's the card purely for Blood Moons. Do we worry about that too much, or is it?
Generous End. Yeah, Generous End. That's a great call out there. That's my bad for not mentioning that one. That is one that's just a land cycler for a force. That's another way to fight through Blood Moon. We'll probably see that card as well. And honestly, maybe Dana wants to. Some players bring in endurance-y type cards, but I doubt it here. You can slide with Phlage, but probably not what it's worth.
Let's have a little look at the Boros deck and the sideboard over there, because of course we're going to game 3 now. So all the marbles on the line. That's the 2 spicy ones you can see there is the Thraben Charm and the
Exercise.
Thank you, Exercise in the main. But this is just the board. What do you think came out here?
Yeah, so the Blood Moon's obviously really, really strong. That's going to be great. Orm's Chant is surprisingly kind of good. The not attack mode thing can sometimes come up, but it's not something that I'm super big on. It really depends on how I want my deck to look post board. You can also Orm's Chant to stop things like the One Ring from coming down. So it depends kind of on how Vince wants to play it here. But I imagine, Exercise is a card you could bring in. It hits Urza Saga, it hits the Amulets, it hits the One Ring, but it is, a card that is a little expensive. It is sorcery speed. and we saw the galvanic discharges. So depends on how he wants to play it. Lots of different ways. Let's go down to the future match area.
Let's do it. Game number 3 here of round number 2 here at the MXP Houston 20K. Both players unfortunately picked up a loss round 1, so they want to bounce back. They want to be on that winning track because we have 7 rounds of Swiss today before we come back tomorrow for 5 more rounds before we hit that top 8 and we find out who's walking away with all that beautiful prize money. Opening hands, we have a little look at Dana's here. I can see no amulets, but a little bit of ramp going on and a bunch of land. And then over on the other side, I think, is it a 1-lander? Maybe we're on a mode of 6 here.
I think we are on a mulligan here for Vince, and I think we are a 2-lander here, but that's a Blood Moon.
But I say, I do see a Blood Moon hiding around at the back there, and there's the 3rd land. We would need to cast it, which is nice and fetchable. So we can go get ourselves a basic planes if needs be. And again, no turn 1 play here for Vince. You have to love to see that if you're over on Dana's side.
Yeah, Dana's side, you love to see it, and you know, okay, there's some reason Vince kept this hand. Now, you could think mold of 6, maybe just, you know, I'm not going to go lower, but lots of times players will go lower for their sideboard card, and Echoing Deeps is just going to be a colorless land this game. No effects, but, you know, tap for a mana.
Is that hand kind of weak to a Blood Moon here?
Kind of. I mean, it's one of those things where I think Dana just kind of has, like, a hand that has the potential to top deck and kill with Titans pretty quickly. Like has the Spelunking, has like that untap enabler, and sometimes you just have to keep these hands with Titan, where it's like my hand doesn't fully kill you, but I have a lot of connectors, and that's something that I think separates a lot of like great players from good players. Is great players can see when they need to keep a hand that needs to get a little lucky because it has everything else going on. Now, didn't get to fully see the hand there. Not exactly sure if that is that spot, but it's not the end of the world to keep a hand that doesn't guarantee a turn 3 kill. It has the potential to top deck because Dana also has a lot of cards that meet that top deck requirement, right? Lotus Fields, bounce lands, a lot of things sort of enable this skill.
Also remember that, you know, this is a 1-ring deck at the end of the day. Even if I do end up getting Blood Moon or something like that, all we need is 4 mana, 1 ring. 1 ring's really good at digging us out in these tight spots. We also see Johnny on the other side coming down, making the 2/1 Cat Warrior token. Back to Dana, access to 3 mana here, and we're going to fire up a Spelunking. I genuinely only know what Spelunking is because of Batman, by the way. Like, that is the only reason I know what Spelunking as a sport, shall we say, is. And just going to let us play 1 land. We had access to playing 2, so that's going to say we don't have another land in hand for Dana, at least not one that she wants to deploy. Fetch, Plains, Blood Moon, go. Simple line, simple play. Maybe there's an attack step here at some point. But
yeah, I was gonna say Vince maybe said attack. It's unclear, right? The players are clearly shortcutting, but you know it'd be very simple for Dana. Vince is tapped out. I'll block 2, take 1.
There you go. There's the point. The Magic the Gathering standard point to my creature. That is the one that is blocking. Take the point of damage. Block the 2/1. But you know, Grazer does a great job of this. Early game, it lets us ram, but it's also a great blocker. And here we go, end of turn, force the vigor, ditching another one. He's going to just straight up get that Blood Moon off the battlefield so we can continue to play some Magic. Is that too early to fire that off, or is it, you know, are you okay to fire it off there and then in case we drew something?
I mean, it depends on our hand, but I kind of like firing it off. Like, let's say Dana is, you know, either a Titan or a 2-mana land away. Well, doing it now, you can't do it on your turn, right? Just opens us up to deploy and win the game. So this is a great spot from Dana if she can, you know, combo kill here. Now, obviously, she's probably missing the land because she didn't play it last turn, but it's possible it's like a Lotus Field, and she just didn't want to sacrifice those other lands, right? And wanted to wait. That is sort of a big thing about Amulet is you don't always play your lands out because of the trigger. You sometimes hold them as, like, rituals, essentially.
All right, here comes Summoner's Pact. If you ask me what card I want banned on December 16th, you're seeing it played right now. It's never going to happen, but every single time I want it. Here comes the Titan.
And yeah, you see the Vestige going to enter untap thanks to it, makes a green, search deck with our Titan. And Dana's going to do a very similar thing as last game, but no mana up. And unless Vince is playing one of those cheeky Solitudes that we know we're not, Dana is going to be able to copy and kind of go through some stuff here. Now, I don't know if she can actually copy this turn. She doesn't have the 2 amulets, but should be able to haste this Titan and get in here and then go grab some basics to play around Blood Moon.
The haste land is on the battlefield if that makes any difference to it.
Well, you can Vesuva to copy it. So,
okay.
Yeah, so as long as you don't have the Vesuva in hand. Now, I'm a master back in the day of drawing Vesuva for turn on the turn I would combo kill. But, you know, Dana might be a real master and doesn't do that here. We'll have to see exactly how she wants to play it. Honestly, from her perspective, just get Forest, you know, if her card in hand is like a decent spell, isn't a bad line. You know,
Yeah,
he
I was
has
about to say
somehow
that.
kill the Titan.
There is a packed trigger, of course, that is going to happen.
Yeah.
So a follow-up Blood Moon could win the game for us, but that if we're going to go a nice simple route, double forest on the battlefield. But this opens up
I don't
to
blame
now,
you.
you know,
Not gonna
a
lie.
stacked prison could get the Titan off the battlefield, and
Mhm.
we're kind of back to square one over on Dana's side.
I think if I was Dana, I would have gone bounce land forest and then bounce my Boseiju to play around the static prison and the Blood Moon. I think that might have been the spot where now it's possible her card in hand is Boseiju. I don't know what this last card is, right? And like obviously this is a good reason not to get a second Boseiju there and just keep your mana and play around even more cards. But you know, imagine, yeah, okay, it's the One Ring. So like that makes a little bit of sense too. Just like, hey, I want to pay for everything, and then if I draw a land, I want to play the One Ring. So I kind of like this line too. A lot of different ways you can go about playing Titan. It's a very complicated deck, as we are going to see another Johnny come down.
Another Johnny. Legends rule means the first one gets sacked. It is, of course, a cat. So the Johnny that's left around realizes a cat has died. So we're going to see another token being made, and probably another token being made. No red permanent, though. Because remember, that Blood Moon did go to the graveyard.
Yo, Will, you down to get a little frisky with it? Tick up, make 2 3/2s, double block.
Nah, I'm not that frisky. No,
All right.
I'd rather make the third one, so I can potentially, you know, maybe no, okay, we're getting frisky,
Yeah.
we're doing it, we're taking it up.
Well, I kind of like it because the Ajani ultimate isn't the worst, and this is essentially the same thing, right? Like if you remove one token, I can't win in combat anyways. I still double instead of triple block, but I think Dana will be able to overcome, you know, this Ajani. But I kind of like it. I think it makes sense.
You're forgetting though that that means that we're giving her another turn, and that's never going to be
Oh
good
yeah,
news.
well I mean, you know, that problem we can't stop either way. You know, Vince is like, hey, I got a Blood Moon, I got a little pressure, that's a keep. That's all I can do. That's all you can do against these Titan decks as the energy deck, you know? You want to have pressure plus a little interaction, that is a winning line. All interaction, not a winning line. All pressure, not a winning line. Did what we get to do.
We paid the pack trigger, and then of course we drew a land, because most of our deck is land, which is enough to play the One Ring. It was Surveil, so we want to keep that card on top, and that is the card that Dana is going to draw. Then we're going to go to combat, attack.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to well, trigger's definitely happening, but we're going to go to Johnny, or
You
we're
just
going
have
to
the
go
card that you
face.
draw off the ring, right?
This could be the double block that you spoke about.
Yeah, the double block here, by the way, by ticking up, you get that extra toughness, a little less trample comes through. Hadn't thought about that one before. Vince sees the lines. But this is a spot too, remember, Dana kept the card on top with the Surveil. So that means Dana's top card is pretty good. This could just be like another Titan. Yeah, and she just sacks a bunch of lands here. Vince obviously trades, right? Then Dana plays another Titan. Like it's just that simple, and that could just be the situation we're in. It could also be, you know, she has an aftermath analyst and just goes through it and uses the shifting woodlands to copy the graveyarded Titan. Lots of different lines here available for her.
4 lands going to go to the graveyard. Combat. Just the what is that? We got a discharge in hand.
Yeah, it does seem to be a discharge. Now, if we're attacking the Ajani, it's going to go to 1, which is kind of a nice spot here.
Yeah. Well, I am gonna bolt it.
Yeah, Dana was like, oh yeah.
I like the emote, sure.
Yeah. Now, it matters a lot when Vince said this, right? Now, maybe Dana said, okay, in turn, and Vince is like, okay, I'll bolt it. But if he's doing it, yeah, they're in combat now. Dana can maybe make copies this time and get them back as Loomer comes down. That's going to return all the lands to the graveyard to the battlefield. We milled an Urza Saga. That's going to add another one. And I don't think the depths, I can't remember exactly if it sees the land in the graveyard as it enters or entering with it. I don't think it does. We'll have to see here.
I weirdly think it does for some reason, but you know, don't listen to me. I don't know. Anything.
I guess technically they're all still in the graveyard. It's not like they use the stack, so that does make sense actually, right? They're all in the graveyard. And they just go from zone A to zone B, and before they're in zone B, the depths would maybe be able to see it. We'll have to get a judge in the chat to let me know how that one works. As Vesuva and Explorer get surveilled away, and the fact we're double surveilling implies to me it does work. So
it's because I think I've had it that played against me where someone did it, and I was like judge, and they went, yeah, that's how it works. That's why I think, but that's pretty much how I learned Magic 101 anyway. But just passing the turn back. How big is this creature? This is a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 powered creature.
Enough. Don't worry about that. Yeah, don't think about those problems. Think about the other problems you have. Like, what are you gonna do for lunch? You know,
Like, did I draw a stag prison? Is basically what I'm thinking right now. Have I got a stag prison in my hand? Because if not, this game is probably over with.
I think he needs static and Thraben Charm because the Woodlands I think now is Delirious, and that means that Shifting Woodlands is a Titan too. So we do have the Exercise.
Okay.
That's going to get rid of the Lumbra.
Exiles it as well.
Yeah, and we have a Bolt in hand.
So still no red permanents. This is probably Johnny's probably making another cat because this one is good enough to get turned sideways now. Yep. Here comes 3 points of damage. I imagine Dana probably takes this at this point. Highest life total at 19. Does. Spreads the graveyard out. Takes another point from that the one ring that's on the battlefield. I don't believe she's got any cards in hand. Does now.
Don't worry, the One Ring will fix that for her very quickly. You know, kids these days got all these cards in hand. Back in my day,
Don't know how good they got it. They just
Yeah.
keep drawing all these cards, no matter what color combination they're playing.
well, I top forward an SCG with Trophy Mage in my amulet deck. I tell you what, I was out there searching for them engineered explosives to kill Tarmogoyf. Anyways, explore.
There's another Explorer. Nice looking Explorer as well. That means we play another land. Still, so that's 2 for the turn we got. We do need a threat. Deck does have lots of them though. Here comes
I think
4 mana.
Well, yeah, I think the threat's in play with the Woodlands because she has Delirium. I'm almost positive, and then now that's a Titan.
Sorcery, land, creature, instant.
Yeah, because she pacted this game, right?
Yeah, it's the pack I can't see, but I know it's in there. So yeah, that's the 4. Titan, copy it, turn it sideways, trigger, get 2 more lands. And here comes the Song and Dance one more time.
Yeah, Shifting Woodlands was a card I was very excited about from MH3. I knew there was a lot of cool things you could do, and I was really excited to see how players would figure out all the different ways to use it. You know, obviously a lot of scares day one about like omnisciency type stuff, right? And you definitely can do that. And you know, I've played against it in the finals of RCQs. Yeah, no, it's very powerful, but also just, you know, an interesting card here in the amulet deck, giving you a lot of resiliency to kill spells and making exile matter even more.
Here comes Mirror Pool, and out of the sideboard, the Radiant Fountains. That's going to get us a little bit more life, which is ideal, especially in a deck with bounce lands. If we can just keep gaining incremental life, that's going to be ideal. Potentially give us the extra turn that we need. This isn't the game for it though, as we're at 21 life. I think we're just taking the 6. I don't think this is going to be going at the Ajani, but I have been wrong before.
Yep, and let's listen in on these players here. Let's turn it up as Dana, you know, is clearly no more.
That's what I pass over to you.
Titan trigger.
So Dana, make a copy. Send it to Titan. Social deck. Get some lands. ASMR. Dana should basically just have her whole deck available to her now. She can kind of search up everything, you know, get a T-West, act again. We can get some Bosages in our hand. And I think Dana might just be on, like, now that the Lumber's exiled, just kind of like, 6/6 attack, you know. Get some more, 6/6 attack, activate my Saga, do that. There might be some line I'm missing here. There's, you know...
Okay.
That's as is Cave.
Yeah. That's going to let her search her deck for any land later. I like this here from Dana, basically just saying like, hey, I could commit to a line here, but I can just wait. And I don't need to, you know, do anything too crazy. I'll just, you know, search up a land on a later turn. Maybe I'll get a bounce land to get this Bosage back. Maybe I'll just search up one. Maybe I'll do something different here. And I still have access to this Urza Saga, and I have a Titan back on defense now from the copy token.
Is there anything that blows us out here for not going all in on that turn?
I don't know if Dana could easily win that turn. I don't know anything that can blow her out because of like her overwhelming position, right? Like there's no Blood Moony type stuff, and it's very hard to take 20 from hand here, right? Like remember, she got that Radiant Fountain, so like gained a little bit of life, has 2 good blockers. So even if, you know, we played a Goblin Bombardment, we played a Raptor that hit a thing, and ticked up, that still would only be like, you know, 10 damage. This is like not enough here. So Vince is going to find a way to both kill the Titan and get rid of the graveyard, and Dana can just go for it on the next turn.
Hear me out. We're going to go Raptor, Oh, we haven't got an angel. I was gonna say Raptor, Flipper, Blood Moon, to then Bolt plus a Johnny, kill the Titans in play, but no. Okay. We're
Anyways,
one angel short.
This is why I want Raptor Ban, because now you see we all had to deal with Will talking about that, and there'd be no card advantage in energy. So, you just have to deal with all your highly rate creatures. You're welcome, chat. As it does look like Vince is tanking, but I don't know. I think Vince can like set up to play a longer game here, right? And kind of hope maybe Dana can't kill. But I think next turn we're gonna have 2 Titans attacking, which is obviously lethal unless we block. And I think we can get a 3rd and haste it, and we're gonna have an Urza Saga token. So we have to do something here, which means we probably need to hit like another creature.
Raven Charm. That can kill. That's 3 creatures on the battlefield. That can kill the Titan on the other side. That can also exile the graveyard.
Yeah, that's big.
We exile the graveyard and then we kill the copy. But we didn't go that way. We killed the one on the battlefield.
Yeah, I was gonna say it looks like we went for the kill mode. Like you mentioned, we could have just exiled the graveyard, then ticked up our Johnny, and then bolted down the Titan token. And that would have been a pretty powerful line there from Vince. I don't know if it would have been enough to actually win the game, but it would have been very good. Remember that Synth Garden 2 can turn into a copy of any artifact. And that will be pretty helpful here for Dana, as she's going to build up an artifact army pretty quickly. But it would have been, like you're saying, a cleared up board and forced Dana to rebuild. And the question is, could she rebuild easily enough?
Well, they probably got the one ring on the battlefield and sizing, you know what I mean? But still, you got to play the outs. We can't win in one shot. We've got to chip away, and we've also got to survive, which is of course #1 priority over on Vince's side. Cannot win the game famously if you are dead. Deciding what to do with this Johnny. It looks like we're going to 0 it. That's going to be 4 creatures on the battlefield plus red source. So 4 damage, going to go to the face. That's going to drop down to 16. We know about this Lightning Bolt and Goblin Bombardment in hand. 1 red mana feels like Lightning Bolt. Players reward 1 as well.
Yeah, of note too, time is an issue, right? When we were starting this match, I saw about 8 minutes left on the clock. Now, our feature match area, they get a couple extra minutes because, players have to be like, oh, I'm in the feature match area. Where can that be? We have to tell them a few things, right? So they probably had more like 10 to 11 minutes. But this game's been going for a while, Will. This has not been a quick game 3.
You forgot the extra half hour you get when you're a Titan player over your opponent.
That's true, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
You get the extra half hour turns.
Honestly, I really, we haven't mentioned it, but I have appreciated, Dana's taken time to think about her plays, but has not tanked forever. You know what I mean?
No.
She's looked through her deck and been like, okay, the line I thought of was the right one, and thought and execute, which is super big here. We are going to see an attack here with these creatures, and we're going to see an Urza Saga activation. Dana's going to make
2/2.
I think it's a 2/2, but with the Synth Guardians, we can actually, I think, turn that into an artifact that should make it 3, I believe.
I'm going to.
So before blocks, we might be firing off this Lightning Bolt that we've been telegraphing.
Yeah.
So what we want to do, looking over at the graveyard, not too happy about what's in there.
Okay. Oh, actually, so we're in turns, Will. Bottom of the table. That's the turn dice. So this actually, that changes things a lot from both players. They're really incentivized to not play a longer game. Like I mentioned before, Dana can maybe turtle up, right, build an army. Not a play.
I'm just also realizing that I know the Arena of Glory is tapped, but no red mana was put into it, so that Raptor shouldn't be getting turned sideways. That does definitely have summoning sickness.
That's true.
I think in the head, the way that I was looking at the line as well, I was also giving it haste. I think that was our best option of doing it, but I think there's a slight problem there for Vince. But this is a recorded match for everybody watching right now, so hopefully it doesn't come too apparent. But these are the creatures going sideways at the minute, and both players do have a responsibility to pick up on that. We're going to block that Raptor, stopping the 2 damage, which means just 5 damage is going to come across. If this is the final way that we want to block, because of course we need to win the game. Constructs and multiple constructs are very good at doing that.
Yeah, so let's see here. Dana gets turn 5, right? Turn 3 is hers, turn 4 is Vince, turn 5 is hers. So that's good for Dana, because that means Dana could theoretically spend a turn using a Titan to fight over this Ajani, and set up a bit more to make sure she doesn't get burned out if she's worried about that.
Cool.
Now, I don't think that's the biggest worry as of right now, but her opinion on that might be different than mine and or change. No, I can't see her hand. We do have bombardment, and Vince is down to let the bigger cat die.
Oh, sorry. That's
Little trade ski-poo.
Like, so I'm trying to think over on Dana side what we can do. We can crack that cave's end of turn, right? And we can go get the second shifted woodland. Then
Well, we don't have enough mana. I think it requires 4 mana to crack the cave.
It's 3, isn't it? I think.
Well, it's 3 in itself. Sorry.
Oh, maybe yeah.
Yeah. My bad. I have a bad habit of saying it like that.
It's all good. It's all good. Right, turn 3 of extra turns. So 2 more to go to be able to win this game. The ring is going to do 2 more to us as well. Remember, the temptation counters from that. We are going to float, not float. No, we're going to make a construct token. Add that to the battlefield before we go and search. There's only really 1 card we find when we search these decks. Unless there's anything spicy in the sideboard, there is one a Vexing Bauble, but I don't think this is the matchup for it.
I saw someone experiment with Lava Spur Boots, which I thought was a pretty cool. I mean, you have the haste land, right? But they were like removing that. I think it ultimately wasn't the right thing to do, but I do love that there's like innovation going on. You know,
I love Lava Spur Boots. I literally, because especially when you play around Saga decks, you're like, okay, well, there's only 1 construct token I've got to block or deal with this turn, and then all of a sudden the second one comes out and it's hasted, and you're like, oh no, what do I do? It's got ward.
Yeah, and it's got +1 too. The +1 I always forget on the boots. I'm like, why does it have the +1 attack? Like, what was the thought there?
They got
like,
spurs. They got spurs on them, dude. You ever been kicked by spurs?
Honestly, I think you just sold me on it making sense. Unironically, I think I'm in. I kind of love the +1 now. That's art.
We got it. Right, back to Dana. What can we do? Another amulet grows that construct by another one that is now a 4/4.
Oh, and we have the fire spout in hand. So Dana can force a figure down this goblin bombardment. Vince probably won't sack his whole board in response. No real need to. And then we're going to clear it up.
So, and we're hard casting it as well. Just to, why not?
Yeah. Well, she's got enough mana, and it would be illegal to do the other mode. So those are 2 good reasons. I'm just messing with you.
That is true. That's why we pay you the big money, Mason. It's good. My job is to make you look good, and I feel like I'm doing it pretty well right now. Okay.
I think it's the genetics that help me look good, but I agree you're not hurting it.
I don't know about that one. Now you're going too far, man. Those genetics, they all need a little bit of help. Here comes the fire spout. This is going to do 3 damage to all creatures that do not have flying, which means the abrasive is going to go. That raptor's got to go. Oh. Yeah, the Raptor's got to go, right?
Raptor's gone. The judge looked. I think the judge is going to step in a second on the Raptor because I just saw the judges behind them watching as we're in turns. I think the players just forgot for some reason. I don't think Fire Spout disregards color.
I don't know. Let me have a look.
I'm sorry.
3 damage to each creature without flying if red was spent, and 3 damage to each creature with flying if green was spent. So, that's
well, guess what? This Amp Raptor is just a glitch in the Matrix. It doesn't die. It doesn't get hazed. Yeah, look at the judge in the background. His face is like, what is going on here?
Yeah, that's gone. Get that out of it.
Yep.
6 damage. Got to imagine it's going to face because Vince is at 12 and we've got 2 turns to win. So this is ideal. 2 6s equal 12.
Yeah, and Dana here just double checking to make sure she can't just kill this turn. Honestly, the new Titan decks are so resilient, right? And they have a lot of new combo kills. I do just miss get Boros Garrison, Hongwar Battlements, just double striking or like hasting and then double striking with the Slayer Sunholm. Just easy. Deal 12, call it a day,
Okay.
But this is technically better. It's
I will use 4 green
Okay. Hear me out.
to make shifting woodlands
And
on
Raptor
the
off the top.
Sure.
And Raptor
I will sacrifice that
hits.
Yeah.
hang on. So we got Dana talking. So he's conceding. She Aftermath Analyst copied there with the Woodlands. It's gonna put a bunch of lands into play, and Vince knows I can't win from here. She's gonna put a bunch of Titans, do it over and over and over and over again. So congratulations to Dana Fisher.